with grace and forgiveness, now that you know so much about it, do you still find it hard at times to forgive people in your own life?
Oh my gosh, yes. Forgiveness is tough when we have a culture where some things have historically always been forgiven. For example, male violence against women. Do you just say, okay, I'll just forgive that when there's just no consequences, when people are barely reporting it, let alone going to jail? Like, what are we doing there? And are we just asking people to accept a status quo? So I think it's important to know that forgiveness is not separate to justice and consequences and those kinds of things, because I've grown up with the value, like my mum was really strong on forgiving, and I could see how it can change people's lives. I can see how you can unburden yourself, and really you're doing something for yourself when you're cutting yourself off from bad things people have done to you. But I've also reported a lot on sexual violence and also domestic violence, and I've seen it be weaponized against those people. This bad thing happened to you, okay, now forgive. Even when there's no remorse. So when they go through, for example, restorative justice conferences, remorse has to be there before they'll even put those two people together. So, yeah, I think about it a lot, and I lean strongly towards forgiving, but I think you also have to protect yourself when you've got toxic situations. It doesn't mean being rolled over, but it is about like protecting your own heart in a lot of ways, and a lot of people call it an unburdening, which I think is a really useful term to use. So there was one woman I spoke to called Debbie McGrath, and her brother was killed when he was 20. She was 24, and it was like his best mate just shot him one night. Never given a reason for it.
Wow.
And literally were playing darts at the pub the night before, just shot him, killed him. And he went to jail. But she became possessed with such rage that it ate her up. Her insides. She got diabetes. She slept walked. She was insomniac, put on a lot of weight. It affected the health of her father. And she said to me she couldn't even look at a sunset without thinking of murder. How would she murder this guy? And after 10 years, she sat down with him in this restorative justice session and said to him, "This is what you did to me." And listed all of the things and what had happened to her. This is what you did to my father and his health. This is what you did to my brother's son, who hasn't had his father for his whole life. And she said there was a point during that conference where she just kind of unconsciously just looked around because it felt like this weight had been lifted off of her.
Just by sharing what she'd done
By saying
to
you did, by just getting it off. And then she said she felt at the end as though she'd got the suitcases of what he had done to her and left it at his feet. That was his, and that was not to do with her. And then when she left, the thing that she'd struggled with most is being able to love again, because to her love was associated with loss. But now, after that moment changed her life, and she has a grandson now and grandkids, and she's able to love them, and she's so relieved about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it purely just the simple act of like telling the story to him and this is what you've done? Was that the thing that enabled her to be able to like move past it to a certain degree?
I think so. I think a lot of it is almost in the symbolic sense of this is yours. I'm not going to be defined by the horrible things you have done. They are yours, and I'm giving it back to you. And I'm telling you what it meant, because you have to know this isn't just about breaking a law. This was about devastating a family and beyond that, let alone stealing someone's life. And I really noticed that I interviewed a lot of people who'd been through significant trauma, and that was a real thread. When I spoke to Arnie Lorraine Peters, who's a stolen generation survivor, and she's like, forgiveness, I don't even understand that word. She said people often say to me, like talk to me about forgiveness, and I say, why? That's your shit. That's not mine. Why are you asking me to? And I don't know if you remember that Scott Morrison on One Sorry Day gave a speech in which he said, saying sorry is one thing, but now like it's time to forgive. Forgive is another thing to do. And they were just like, get in the bin, because you can't put that burden. Like, why is the burden on the victim to deal with the mess that has been made? That said, I do think that you can have profound moments of forgiveness. But when I was thinking about grace, and I spent time with Arnie Lorraine, who had been taken as a child to the Cootamundra girls' home and had a horrific experience. And yet I see in her the most astonishing grace. She is a person who's so kind of strong and kind and is continuing to walk alongside and hope that things can get better. Like, she just had such a striking spirit that I thought that to me was where the grace is in this situation, not coming down and saying, oh, all this is over now, right? We can all forgive this nonsense now. So, but forgiving personally, aside from like broader wrongs that are being done culturally, can, I think, free you. It just frees you. Yeah.